everybody, good evening. I'm very happy to see you all here. My name is Susan, and I will tell you a story about traveling. I found out that most of the funny, hilarious, or not so nice stories happen to us while we are traveling. So for me, traveling was always a central piece in my life. My dear love for traveling emerged when I was a child. I grew up in a little village in Hessen, which is about half an hour drive from Frankfurt on Main, but we lived in a different world, in a small village. And one day, my father was somehow busy with repairing something, and I was playing, and I was somehow in his way. He got a little bit stressed, and he said, "You know what? If you're a good girl and you go out of my way, I will take you to Frankfurt later." And I thought, oh, Frankfurt, that was the big city lights. That was for me some kind of place where so many things can happen which I didn't know anything about. And I really was so keen on going to Frankfurt. So I went into our family car, I sat on the back seat, and I waited for my father to get into the car and take me to Frankfurt. And I waited, hours and hours, the whole afternoon, and then the evening. Finally, supper time came. I was still sitting in the car, and my mom found me, and she had to drag me out with force because I didn't want to leave the car. I wanted my father to get into the car and take me to Frankfurt. Yeah, I was very small then, but I can still remember this. And what I learned on that day is that adults do not always mean what they say, and they do not always keep their promises. Well, I got older, I went to school, I learned English, I studied, and I traveled. I traveled the world as much as I can, as much as my budget allowed. And then I had the opportunity to go to the US on a student exchange program. I was very happy. I signed up right away. I did everything that was necessary, all the paperwork, filling in hundreds of forms. My parents had to sign that I'm not a bad girl, that I don't cause any problems. So, yeah, and I finally could go to the US. It was not the first time I traveled there, but it was the first time I got a visa for half a year work, and I could live there. So I had to go first to NYC to attend to an introduction workshop. It was in the middle of summer, it was super hot, and I went to New York City. And I tell you what, New York City in the summer heat is a challenge in itself, but I had to go there. So I attended that introduction workshop where they told us a lot of okay, you're here in the US, but don't you think that we are waiting for you? Okay, thank you. And then after this introduction workshop, we did a little bit of sightseeing, and I learned about New York City. It's many decades ago, and at that time, I thought New York City was the door to hell, I saw so many homeless. I've never seen so many homeless on the street. I've never seen such giant cockroaches in the bathroom. And I've never seen those gangsters like in the movies. I always thought it's just a movie, sitting in the street in the evening, burning trash cans, and yeah, that was a weird place. And I was so happy to leave it, to go to the West Coast where my job was waiting. So very early in the morning I went. So what I'm telling you now is the worst experience I had on that trip and the best one. I start with a bad one. One morning I had to go from New York City, Manhattan to the airport, and I was waiting in a bus terminal somewhere in Manhattan for my bus to take me to the airport. And it was very, very early in that morning, very early. There were very, very few people around. I think there was just 3 or 4 people in that huge bus terminal. I was sitting there waiting for my bus. All of a sudden, a young homeless person, some kind of gangster rapper, approached me, and he started harassing me. He was starting to talk to me, harassing me. And I thought, what am I supposed to do now? I don't know. I didn't know. Was he under drugs? Was he completely crazy in his head? He acted like this, and there was nobody I could turn to. And I was really, he didn't let go of me. He realized that I was scared, and I got more and more scared. And I really tell you, on this morning, I was really scared for my life, because I didn't understand the rules and the laws in this city, in this urban jungle. I didn't know how to behave, what to do, what to say, what not. And all of a sudden, a police car turned up, and it stopped close to me. And I ran to the police officer, and I told him the situation. I explained it to him. He said, "You wait there, I will wait here until your bus comes, okay?" I went back to that seat. The police car was right next to us, the police officer sitting inside. But this gangster guy he wasn't impressed at all that there was a police car. He just got more and more mad at me, trying to harass me, bullying me. And I thought, okay, when will he start doing things to me physically? I don't know. And then in this minute, I realized that this police officer would never leave his car. Never ever. He would not, whatever happened to me, he would not leave his car for his own safety. That was a scary moment. And don't forget, I was a little Landei from Hessen, I was completely on my own, and I didn't understand the world. After felt eternity, the bus finally turned up. I boarded the bus and I went to the airport, and I thought I will never ever go to New York City again. Thank God I went to the West Coast, to San Francisco. Life was much better there, in my opinion. Really, I like it a lot there. And after my half year's working period, my visa expired, but I had still some time to travel around, which I did with some German girls. We traveled along the West Coast. It was a lot of fun. We ended up somewhere in Nevada, Arizona, and then we went up to Washington State. Then it was time to split, because they had to go home, and I was traveling around a little bit, and I thought, I need to go back to California, get my flight back home, but yeah, let's go to Oregon. I want to see this place. So I bought a Greyhound bus ticket. These days people were traveling on the Greyhound. That was supposed to be the big adventure. We in Germany believe this, believe it or not. So I was sitting on that bus, and that the distances in the American West Coast are huge. So you're traveling like 8 hours in a row and there's nothing, just desert. Yeah, so I sat on that bus for a couple of days. I saw places, and one evening I was sitting on that bus, and a young girl approached me, and the seat next to me was vacant. And she said, "Hi, is this seat still vacant?" And I thought, I can do as you can do. I said, "Hi." And she said, "Oh, du bist Deutsche." And I thought, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I worked hard for half a year trying to speak American accent, and be American. And I really didn't want anybody to identify me as a German Kartoffel right away, but she did. But anyway, it turned out she spoke very good German. Her boyfriend was German. She had a long-distance relationship with him, and she was so happy to have somebody to talk German to. So we spoke German on the trip. We went to Portland, and then she said, "You know what? Why don't you stay overnight at my place?" I said, "Yeah, that would be nice. I would appreciate this. I would appreciate to take this offer." And because I've been traveling for a couple of days. I was a little bit smelly. I wanted to have a shower, and she took me to her place. Her parents picked her up at the bus station. And that was a time when mobile phones did not exist, and you could not send a heads up to your parents, hey, I'm bringing a guest overnight. She just confronted them with the situation. Hey, this is Susan from Germany, she's German, and she will stay overnight. So no questions asked. Her parents didn't make any fuss. They said, okay, welcome, get into our car. They were both university professors, very nice people. And the mother took my clothes, put them in the washing machine, into the tumble dryer. They took me, put me in the shower. I had a meal. We went out a little bit in the evening. And on the next day, I just left. I said, thank you. I had a suitcase full of good smelling clothes. I smelled better. And I was so grateful for the hospitality of these people who didn't know me at all. They had never seen me before in my life. They had no clue who I am, but they just welcomed me in such a nice and easygoing way, as if I was part of the family. And that was the best experience I had on that trip. So yeah, that was my story, and please keep on traveling.